So boys, for the next session of this online class, we had in the previous session or in the previous class, we had talked about the various steps initially that were taken by Hitler to follow his aggressive policy. And we had done till the capture of Rhineland. We remember that in the Treaty of Versailles, Rhineland was demilitarized, and after the capture of Rhineland by Hitler in 1936, this was the first phase of his aggressive policy to capture Rhineland. And that was the first step of Hitler to start his war preparations. So the capture of Rhineland by Hitler was the first phase of his aggressive policy and the starting point of his rearmament, or you can say to start with war preparations. The next step was the Rome-Berlin-Tokyo axis, which you have in your book on page 105. Now Hitler in 1936 first signed the Comintern Pact with Japan, and this pact was against the Russian communism, and later this pact was joined by Italy and it turned into Rome-Berlin-Tokyo axis. If you remember in class 10 syllabus, you had done the causes of the Second World War, and the last cause just before the invasion of Poland was the Rome-Berlin-Tokyo axis, which came up in the course of Hitler's aggressive policy. The next was Anschluss with Austria, or you can call it as annexation of Austria in 1938. We will be revising the chronological order of Hitler in this chapter, but we will do that later on after I have finished the entire chapter. So next step of Hitler was the Anschluss. Anschluss means union. The annexation of Austria in 1938. So 36 was the Rhineland being captured by Hitler. 37 was Rome-Berlin-Tokyo axis. And 38 was the annexation of Austria, or the union of Austria to the Third Reich, or the German Empire as it was called. Hitler wanted Austria to come back to its mother country, the mother country being Germany, or the motherland being Germany. Now the Austrian Nazis who were living in Austria started demonstrating in Vienna and Linz and wanted that there should be reunion of Austria with Germany. And this demonstration could not be controlled by the Chancellor of Austria, who announced that very soon there would be a referendum, as he was anticipating German invasion in Austria. So he proposed that there would be a referendum to decide whether Austria should remain independent. Hitler was little alert, and he thought that if referendum was held and the vote goes against him, it would not be possible for him to bring Austria to the German Empire, or under it, or united with the motherland. So Hitler wanted to act before the referendum, and he sent troops into Austria. And that's how Austria became a part of the German Empire, or the Third Reich, R-E-I-C-H. It means empire or kingdom by the Germans. This was a victory for Germany because Austria was added or was annexed by Hitler and was brought into the German Union, or the German Empire. And it also, because he annexed Austria and there was no protest. There was no reaction of Britain and France. So it was felt that the two countries, Britain and France, had been exposed. Their weakness was exposed. It revealed the weakness of Britain and France, who were just protesting but did nothing. So this also showed the value of new sort of understanding which was there between Hitler and Italy, and gave a severe blow to Czechoslovakia. It also was the prelude to the annexation of Czechoslovakia, because at the first step, if Hitler wasn't stopped, the next step would have been Czechoslovakia. Now, onslaught was complete, and Hitler could now attack Sudetenland, or he could now attack Czechoslovakia from all corners, from south, west and north. Everything was now ready for Hitler's campaign to get the German-speaking Sudetenland, and for that he started a campaign which ended in a triumph for Hitler at Munich conference in 1938. Let us go back into Czechoslovakia and study as to how Hitler intervened and what finally led to the annexation of Sudetenland first and the leftover territories of Czechoslovakia later on. Now, this intervention of Czechoslovakia, or you can say the capture of Czechoslovakia by Hitler, is important for ISC. We have studied that Czechoslovakia was created by the Treaty of Versailles as an independent state, and Czechoslovakia had a mixed population living in it. There were Sudeten, the Germans, the Sudeten Germans, which were who were very much conscious of their German blood, and Hitler demanded that Sudeten should be handed over to Germany because of it having Germans living over there. He wanted to destroy Czechoslovakia as a part of his policy called Lebensraum policy. Now, Lebensraum policy meant living space. If you follow your book, you will get to know it. But there are many points, boys, which are being taught by me today and are not very clearly mentioned in your book. So you better follow the points, and you can keep a notebook and you can always note down the points as I teach. Now, he wanted to capture Czechoslovakia under a policy called Lebensraum policy, which means living space, because he hated the Czechs. First, why did he hate the Czechs? That was they were following democracy. Second, for them being Slavs. And third, because their state, that Czechoslovakia, had been set up by the Treaty of Versailles, which was hated by Hitler. You know that right from the beginning, he hated the Treaty of Versailles, and he had always blamed the Weimar Republic for signing such a disgraceful treaty. So, Hitler gave an excuse also that the German Sudetens, or the Sudeten Germans, had a leader called Konrad Henlein, who was discriminated by the Czech government. Germans, he also said that the Germans were unemployed in Sudeten, as most of them were working in industries. So they were unemployed because of the depression, economic depression that was there in the world. And unemployment problem was very severe because of the depression. Now the Nazis organized huge demonstrations in the Sudetenland, leading to clashes between the Czechs and Germans. So Nazis were wanting Sudetenland, so they started encouraging demonstrations so that the people also react to the propaganda of the Nazis, and there it led to clashes between the Czechs and the Germans. Now the Czech president Edward Bernays feared that Hitler was the man to stir up disturbances, and the German troops could march into Czechoslovakia to restore peace. Why? Because there were clashes between the Germans and the Czechs. So he was fearing that the German troops might enter Czechoslovakia, Sudetenland, and might capture with an excuse to restore peace. Now, at this point, Chamberlain, the PM of Britain, and the French PM felt that this situation would finally lead to a war, and they wanted to go to any extent to avoid that, to avoid a war. And they started putting tremendous pressure on Czechoslovakia to make concessions to Hitler. Finally, under great pressure, Bernays agreed to hand over German Sudetens to Germany. Chamberlain then flew to Germany, had talks with Hitler. After this happening, he flew to Germany. He held talks with Hitler on 15 September and explained the offer. Hitler accepted, but that the portions which had German or Sudeten Germans would be handed over to Germany. So he explained that offer to Hitler in the first meeting, but in the second meeting that was held, Hitler demanded more of Czechoslovakia. He was not satisfied with that portion of Czechoslovakia, and there was immediate entry of German troops to Sudetenland. Bernays did not agree to this, that he should be given over many more areas, and so he started mobilizing Czech troops or army. And how did he do that? He first fortified the frontiers with Germany, Austria and Hungary. He built bunkers, anti-tank defenses, hoping that along with this fortification and this building up of his army, he would definitely get the help from his allies, the friends, that is France and USSR. And with their help, the attack could be stopped. When the war was almost inevitable, Britain, France, Germany and Italy, they signed the Munich Pact. At Munich, with the French PM Dadelier, Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister. This was called as a four-power conference, the Munich Agreement or the Munich Pact. This plan at the pact was produced by Mussolini and was accepted also. Sudetenland was next handed over immediately to Germany. But in this conference, the two other countries which were not invited and the country which was wholly involved in this problem was Czechoslovakia. So Czechoslovakia and Russia were not invited to this conference. Czechs told that if they resisted the German troops, that would be resisting the Munich decision. They would receive no help from Britain and France. So if they resisted also, they were very much sure that France and Britain would not help them. Everything, even though France had guaranteed Czech frontiers at Locarno. Now, Czechoslovakia felt betrayed by France and Britain. and the Czech military resistance seemed to be hopeless. So now Czechoslovakia felt that they had no choice but to go along with what was decided at the Munich conference. The president of Czechoslovakia, Beneš, resigned. Chamberlain and Hitler signed a statement that was called as, I repeat, the scrap of paper. Please write it, the scrap of paper, which was prepared by Chamberlain, promising that Britain and Germany would give up warlike intentions against each other. This was the scrap of paper after the giving or the resignation of the Czech president. Germany and Great Britain signed this paper, which was called as the scrap of paper prepared by Chamberlain, that they would renounce and give up all intentions of warlike situations or warlike intentions against each other, and would definitely consult each other to deal with any problem that would arise later on. As a result of the Munich Agreement, the Czechoslovakia was crippled by the loss of 70% of heavy industries. A third of her population was lost, a third of her territories, and almost all her prepared fortifications went to Germany. In 1939, Slovakia also demanded independence from Prague. The new president of Czechoslovakia, who was called as Haka, was invited to Berlin and was told that in order to protect German Reich or German Empire, a protectorate was to be imposed over what was left of Czechoslovakia. And so German troops entered Czechoslovakia to protect those areas which were still not in the German Empire, and Haka ordered his troops that if the German troops entered, they would not resist. And on March 1939, German troops occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia, and Czechoslovakia was, in the meantime, or at that time when German troops attacked Czechoslovakia, the Czech army was in the barracks. That meant what? That there was no resistance, there was no stopping of the German troops. Slovakia became independent under the Reich. Chamberlain's guarantee of Czech frontiers, which were given at Munich, were not applied at this time, because they said that technically the country had not been invaded by the Germans. German troops had entered on invitation. They were not attacked by Germany, but Germany was, on the other hand, invited by them. And Hitler, when he entered Sudetenland, he was greeted warmly by the people. So this was the annexation of Czechoslovakia and the entire events that took place in Czechoslovakia, and how finally Czechoslovakia was captured by Hitler. I hope till here you could understand the various steps that were taken by Hitler, and you could understand the chronological order in which he finally captured Czechoslovakia. So, for the time being, you can go through the video, look at the points, match the points with your book, and in case you have some extra information given by me, you can always note it down in your notebooks and keep it for your school classes when the classes resume. So boys, all the best till now. We will come up with the next step of Hitler, that is the invasion of Poland in September 1939, and then we will come to the aggressive policies of Mussolini. So for the time being, all the best, take care and be safe.